Hi everyone, welcome to Expats Listen with Ryan and Liz. We're happy to have you today, and today we're going to be listening in on a conversation that Liz had with Angela, and really interesting stuff, wonderful person to have met. We really hope you enjoy the show today.
All right, so here we are with Angela. And Angela, thank you so much for joining. Do you want to get started? Tell us a bit about yourself.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. So my name is Angela. I am the founder and owner of the Expat Parenting Collective. I am originally from the New York City area and left in 2010 and moved initially to South Korea. And now I live in Brussels, Belgium, and in between 40 different countries, lots of adventures, lots of experience, and it's been a wild ride, and I do not regret any of it.
And yeah, really excited to have Angela here because I am also from the New York City area and also left in 2010 and have also been to so many countries in between. And it's so funny how weirdly parallel our lives have been in that way.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. So why South Korea? Why did you start there?
So at the time, right before I decided to leave, the economic downturn, and I was teaching in a high school in New York City, in Queens, New York, and I was faced with a layoff, and I thought to myself, okay, I could stay here and work 4 jobs as an adjunct and Starbucks for health insurance, or I could take a different path. And in doing that, what I did was I started to weigh the pros and cons of all the countries that had opportunities available. Mm-hmm. And South Korea happened to be one of the safest, with a salary that was somewhat similar. And in addition to that, I knew 2 people there.
Okay.
One of my friends from high school was in the military up in the Air Force. And then another one was actually teaching at a university a bit further south. So through all of that together and just weighing all the data points, I chose to go to South Korea. I started in Incheon, which is where the airport is, and then eventually after that to Yongin, and then further to the city, Seoul.
So what did your friends and family say? Because I think that coming from New York, I can tell you my experience is that most people do not expect you to ever leave New York. And if you do leave New York, then they're like, okay, do your thing, but you'll be back soon. So what was that conversation like when you said that you were leaving? How did your friends and family take it?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So at first, I think we all, myself included, really figured that this was going to be a temporary thing. Like, dare I say, a bridge between the I don't want to be unemployed and I'd rather have an adventure and figure things out in the way. But as time went on, first let me answer your question briefly. I think that there was a bit of curiosity. There was a bit of not understanding, but open to me kind of leaning into whatever I needed to do. And what I also wanted to say is that as time went on and I started to really love what I was doing, it doesn't mean that there weren't bumps along the road, right?
Sure.
When I started to really embrace this new life, this life of being an expatriate, or this life of, not living back in the United States or New York, that's when some really interesting comments started to come up, like, you need to come back and start your life where you should be, and you need to come back and live the way that life is supposed to be for you. You're not supposed to be there. And so that was really crunchy. Those were some crunchy moments in which I was just like, wait a second, this is my life, not your life.
Yeah.
I understand you don't understand. How about asking questions? And maybe we can kind of have a conversation here. That doesn't always work.
No. But I think in navigating those, have the questions stopped? Because I feel like, at least for me, there's still so many people in my life that are still waiting for whatever the next milestone is that's going to bring me back to New York.
Yeah. What's so interesting, I hear this question a lot from people that I first meet. Why would you ever leave New York? And I'm like, I get that. I understand it has all the things. And I feel like once I met my husband, we met in the Netherlands. And once we had children, which was in 2018 and 2020, I feel like things changed. There was a point where we were looking at opportunities there. And then we just started to realize, where we're at right now is pretty darn great. Like, there's nothing that really would take us away from here other than maybe like a year stint somewhere else. And the world is an incredible place. And so there are so many other opportunities and possibilities,
But I feel like the ethnocentrism of Americans is unmatched. I feel like Americans believe that America is the best country in the world, bar none, no question. And New Yorkers almost have that to an extreme, that New York is the best and New York has everything. And why would I live somewhere else when I could live in New York? And yeah, what did you say? Because obviously, like, the answer is lots of other places have lots of beautiful things, and I really like this, and I really like that.
Yeah.
But I assume that you've had to answer that question a lot. So how do you deal with it?
Yeah, I think people have just gotten used to the fact that I do things differently, and I'm also I think most New Yorkers are straight shooters in the essence that they're pretty honest with people. And that's one of the things I really loved about living in the Netherlands. A lot of people are like that there as well. But I think people started to get used to my directness and kind of course correcting what I kind of feel to be a bit of brainwashing in America, which is this idea that we are the best place in the world. We can be the best place in our mind, and there can also be other great places too. Let's hold that duality to be true, that bothness there, right?
Sure.
So after a while of people just getting used to me kind of like coming back with questions to them to kind of try and like challenge their thinking, they kind of stopped.
Okay, all right. And then your husband, where is he from?
He's Italian.
Okay, so he's Italian. You met in the Netherlands?
Yes.
And then have you ever lived in Italy together?
No. I've traveled more of Italy than he has because I also have Italian roots on my dad's side, but we have not lived in Italy together, no.
Okay, so you've always lived in a third place. You're from one place, he's from a second place, and you've always lived in a third place.
Yes.
And how do you feel that, what do you feel like the challenges of that have been?
Can you be more specific?
Yeah, of course. So I think Ryan and I are the same, that I'm from the US and he's from South Africa. And now here we are living in Portugal. And I think there are a lot of challenges there in that you can't just go back to your family easily. I think that for us, vacation time is almost always visiting family, and it's really hard to plan a fun vacation and have that guilt of I'm not visiting my family, but I should, but I really want to go on vacation. And also I feel like we rely on each other a lot more than other couples would because we don't have that built-in support system.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree. And I echo everything that you're saying. I think the reason why I ask, can you be more specific, is because there's the living in a country, there's having children in a country, there's navigating in-laws, there's so many different things because you have so many mixes of cultures, you have mixes of misunderstandings, and you have the third culture.
And you have language too between you guys.
3 different languages, exactly. There are so many things. I think we could have a podcast just on this question alone, but I totally agree with you on the fact that you need to have a support system other than your husband or your partner, because life is so much more than that. You have to have somewhat of a community. Like, there's a special bond that happens between people of the same sex. Like, women have special bonds with other women, men have other bonds and special bonds with other men. The vacation thing that you hit upon is so, so, so important. In fact, after having kids, that's when this became super, super important, because we wanted to make memories as a family of 4.
Yeah.
And there is that guilt that comes with going to how do I say this? There is that guilt if you feel like you shouldn't step away from going on those vacations to see family. And there's also a need to hold space in a vacation space for yourself. And I feel like it almost is a bit of like martyrdom here. Like, I need to do what my family wants. I need to see my family. And I totally understand how it feels to have aging parents in different cultures and feeling like you need to contribute 100%.
Yeah.
And what we did is we decided to do one vacation in one place per year, one vacation in another place per year, or somewhere close by to them. and something else for ourselves, whether that be a staycation somewhere nearby, whether that be, kind of going into the mountains or whatever, or even somewhere else nearby. And that's, I think, one of the great things about living in Europe is that you can take a flight somewhere or take a train somewhere and be in a totally different culture with totally different food. And that's what's great. But there really is so much that I can talk about here. I just really want to echo
first. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it really is important to take care of yourself first. And I think so many of us, we want to make sure that our partnership is okay. We want to make sure that our partner is doing all right. We want to make sure that our business, if we are entrepreneurs, is going all right. And I think that it's really important to take care of ourselves first. And this becomes super important if you're a parent abroad in a third country, because you don't have your family, you're building your community, and it's so important. I think the other thing that is really important too here is kind of what we spoke about before, which was the duality, the bothness. Like when you move overseas, when you move abroad, when you're with your partner, and often just with your partner for, no one else, it's important to be able to understand that your identity may shift, and there may be some moments that are a bit icky, but you can hold the excitement of being in another country with your partner and the grief at the same time and still realize that both of them can coexist together. I really do think it's super important for those vacations, just the two of you or just as a small nuclear family. I think those are where those magical moments really are born. And it also kind of teaches your families, and I mean that as in the families where you were raised, that there are some boundaries there. It's not just running to them at every moment. And I'm not saying that people who do that are doing something wrong, but it allows a family to have that space to where that they're not often controlled by mom or dad, because often we go to the whims of what they want because that's the time where we get to see them. I think those are my top three, and I really feel that they are super important. Taking care of you, holding the duality of life as an expatriate, an economic migrant, an immigrant, and lastly, making space for you during that vacation time. Really important.
So how often do you go back to the States now?
This may get to be a bit tricky. I usually go back one time a year. We did not go back this year because our children are trilingual. They don't lead with English, and my husband is not an American, nor does he have a green card, so we did not go back this year. We went to Canada. But we usually go back every year, and we usually love going back to the New York City area. My husband loves the New York City area. So, yeah, one time a year.
So when you got married, you never considered moving to the U.S. and living in the U.S. together?
No, in fact, my husband, he was on the job market because he was out of academia, and he actually considered it. And he was getting opportunities to work at different, local, what would be the equivalent of like the Federal Reserve. Like each state has like a governing, I don't know the terminology. I'm not an economist. But he was getting offers at lots of different places because he's a financial economist, and there were being someone from the native New York, a native to the New York City area, I was very much like, I can live in Philadelphia, I can live in, Boston, I can live here, but I'm sorry, small towns, they're just not going to work for me. I will be miserable. And so he was getting offers all over the place. So he considered it. But I was a bit like, I don't know about this. And I think I just really warmed up to the fact that I think I became more self-aware when I left the US. With every single flight, every single experience, traveling to places like Cambodia, Australia, living in South Korea, traveling China, everywhere. I learned something about myself in every single one of those excursions, every single one of those entry points, conversations. And I started to realize that I had grown out of what I was. Like my identity had shifted from who I was in the US. And like, I love New York. I still love New York. And when I go back, I find myself slip back into that like hum of the way that the city goes.
Totally.
And I also feel like it wasn't me. I was being driven by that hum. So, you know what I mean? Like, that pace.
You weren't driving it. It was driving you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I started to realize, like, I'm not sure that's me anymore. And it's been confirmed as has gone on, because I have really eased into the fact that, you know what? We work to live. We don't live to work. We can ease into life and we can have that balance. And work-life balance is not just some phrase that everyone throws out there to get you on their staff or whatever it may be. Like, it actually can exist. And so that's really the long answer to that. Like, I don't, after a while, it just wasn't even an option on the multiple choice.
Yeah. So then what were the options and how did you go about choosing? Because I think that when you're alone, so your choice to move to South Korea by yourself, it's a lot easier to make that choice. It's a lot easier to say, I am going to go here. There's no one else who has any feelings about it that are really going to change my going there. So let's do it. But then you get a husband and all of a sudden it becomes a lot more complicated as to where to go. So how do you guys make that decision together of where to live?
So just a little bit of backstory. When I moved to the Netherlands from South Korea, of course, traveling and visiting many different countries in between, I was faced with an option or a choice, let's say that.
Yeah.
I could stay there for 90 days and just explore and try and find an opportunity, or I could start a business. And so I was kind of pigeonholed into entrepreneurship. And no one talks about how challenging that can be, but it turned out to be an amazing opportunity for me. And that's how I got to stay in the Netherlands. They have this agreement with Americans, I think also Japanese, called the Friendship Agreement. And so I could start a business on my own, and I had my own business, and it was really successful. And I met my husband, and as time went on, as he was on the market, as I said previously, he got an opportunity in Brussels, and that's what moved us from Rotterdam to Brussels. For me, since I was an entrepreneur, I could literally work from anywhere.
Right.
What I was doing, you know, like at first it was educational consulting, like using English as a means to consult and to educate and to train. Now it's different, of course, and that's based on my purpose and my path. But yeah, it wasn't really like, okay, let's take these 5 countries and just kind of do process of elimination based on opportunity, based on healthcare, based on whatever. No, it actually was, he was looking at many different things, and we just kind of talked about what could work, what couldn't work, what did we want, what didn't we want. And yeah, it turned out that the country next door was our best opportunity.
So it was really just for a job offer.
Yes.
And then how did that feel, I guess, when you got there? Because it seems like you've made a lot of these like on paper decisions. Like you make your pro con list and things it makes sense for you. So like that's the logical decision. Do you feel like you're driven very much by the logical decision for these choices?
I think that was very much who I was in the past, but I also do lean on my intuition. And if something feels good, then I continue down that path. And if it doesn't, I just stop it in the process. But I am much more of a logical thinker. So hats off to you. But so,
me
it wasn't,
too, which is how I recognize it.
Exactly. Yeah. But I wouldn't say that it's kind of like I need to check all the boxes. It's more about like, okay, does this feel right? And of course, checking the boxes is part of that, but it's not only that.
Okay. So then did you already have children when you moved to Brussels? Okay,
we
so
actually
it's just
moved,
the 2 of you.
Yeah, we moved when I was 5 months pregnant, which is a challenge all in and of itself.
Wow, what timing. Okay, so you were 5 months pregnant. You spoke Dutch, I imagine?
I knew a little bit, but in the Netherlands, you honestly don't really need it if you know that you're not going to be there forever, because everyone speaks English. It's a country in which all the programming on television is in its original language. So if you're watching something in Dutch, it's in Dutch. But if you're watching something in English, it has Dutch subtitles. So everyone speaks English really well. And so if you speak English, you can easily get around without any problem.
Okay. So when you moved to Brussels, was it the same that everything was in English, especially when you were pregnant, all the doctor's appointments, everything?
Yeah. So there are tons of internationals, expatriates, economic migrants in Brussels, purely because you have NATO, you have the European Commission, you have all the different embassies and all of that kind of stuff, international organizations. So there are many people who speak English. However, that doesn't mean that the system and the governments and all of that speak English.
Yeah.
You will have doctors that speak English because naturally they have to cater to the needs of the people that are there. But that didn't, I mean, I still had to find a gynecologist, obstetrician who spoke English. I still had to find all these things. I needed to learn French, but that wasn't my priority at first because we needed to get settled and I was pregnant and I knew I wasn't going to work immediately and all this stuff. But it was a journey for sure. And I spoke no more than traveler's French at that point. So,
wow. Okay,
yeah.
so then how long did it take to get your French to a better place then, especially considering that it wasn't your priority at the beginning?
Well, my French probably is a confident A2 at this point, and that's enough to get me around France and Belgium with the minor kind of confrontations. Or complications, maybe I should say. I would say once I started doing it, actually taking French lessons, it probably was about maybe 6 to 9 months. And that's probably because I spoke Italian before that,
Okay.
before learning it, which is a positive and negative in and of itself, right? You know, if you speak another language that's similar, you're going to have lots of false friends. You're going to have verbs that are similar and verbs that are different. And so you have all that confusion in there too. And my languages were like a seesaw going back and forth. But I think it did help because I did have some of a root of understanding how the Latin-based languages work. Yeah, just a lot about the rules and all the rest of that stuff. So it did help. Pronunciation is a whole different thing to tackle, and writing is definitely complicated with all the accents and the silent letters and all that stuff. But yeah, I would say 6 to 9 months, but I really do think that it was very much assisted by the fact that I knew another Latin-based language.
And then A2 level, would you say that you hang out in French, or when you see friends, is it generally you just switch to English?
I want to say that most of my friends are much more confident in English and they're from all over the world, from Belgium, from Poland, from Latvia, really all over, Italy as well. So most of us, we communicate in English because it's a language that everyone would speak at some confident level. Even maybe if someone's only like a B2, they may not be so confident, but they'll still go with it. That doesn't mean that if someone comes up to me speaking in French that I'm not going to embrace the conversation. Of course I will. And all conversations that we have in any kind of place, it will always start with French. And if there comes a moment of confusion, I feel like I do this in all languages. You just kind of smooth it over with, I'm sorry, I don't speak so well, or I don't speak too well. Do you speak a little bit of English? And if they say no, you just find your way about it, right? That's also traveling the world. But it's that extending of the olive branch saying, hey, I'm here, I speak your language, I'm trying, and I'm not always going to get it right. So can you help me a little bit here? And what's so funny about Belgian French speakers and also France French speakers, or shall I say French speakers, they will be like, of course, thank you, no worries. And then, of course, they pick it up right there and they are off and running with their French speaking at a mile a minute or a kilometer a minute. And you're just lost in the thing. And you're like, thank you for seeing me. And I'm sorry, but what?
Yeah.
So, yeah, but that's kind of life. And it's just like they accept it and they're, that's their life and that's how they are. And it's just they're showing that, okay, we see you. You're one of us. Now keep up.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's more difficult to live there without having that French fluency? Or do you feel like because Brussels is so international, you have enough choice to make friends and have groups of people around you where English is your primary language and you don't actually need the French as much?
I see the value in having it, and I wish it was better. And I know at one point I will return back to it. So I think it's an and both, right? It's not either or. I know that, and this may be an overwhelming generalization, but I know that more often than not, the people who speak English are going to understand me, my life, my choices because they're a part of this international community that's traveled, that live in different countries. They're probably raising third culture kids. They're probably living in a country right now that's not their own. And I can still have Belgian friends too.
Yeah.
And it's okay. And I think it really is that both there, because you can have both of those and still, be about it. But yeah, it's challenging. This life that we've chosen, it can be a bit complicated or complex at times.
Yeah, I mean, definitely for making friends, I think it can be a challenge because I feel living in Portugal that I'm often forcing people into accommodating for me because I can have a conversation in Portuguese, but after about 20 minutes, I'm done. I am tired. It's too much for me. And especially if I have a glass of wine, I am really ready to start speaking English now, please and thank you. And
that's really funny.
And I feel bad that my friends then have to switch to English to accommodate me. Okay. And so I kind of feel this constant push-pull of I need to get better so that I'm accommodating them and they're not accommodating me, but they're so happy to speak English and their English is so good that they don't mind and it's fine. But it definitely limits you in who you can be friends with because I'm not friends with anyone who doesn't have at least a basic level of English. All of the friends that I've made here at least can speak at a pretty low level of English. And most of them speak very well in English.
Yeah, I encountered that when I was in Portugal as well, that most people speak English, most Portuguese speak English very well, especially around the Lisbon area. What's so funny when you said about the glass of wine, like I've heard, and I kind of feel this way too myself, that speaking another language once you've had a drink actually kind of loosens things a bit and allows you to kind of open up. But it's interesting that you bring up that point. I totally hear you. And what also is interesting, being in such, dare I say, intellectually demanding circles, because people who are really highly educated, I find that for me, speaking in either Italian or French, that especially today where they kind of have suffered at for each other's growth, for me, it comes down to depth, deep conversations. I can only go so far. And that's kind of where I start to shrink a little bit. And I hate that feeling because I'm definitely a person who wants to put my voice out and, wants to speak and let myself be seen. Yeah, that's where I get tripped up for sure.
Completely. Yeah. Depth and also I think tone, because Ryan and I talk about this all the time, but we both consider ourselves a lot funnier in English than in Portuguese. And I can't tell a joke in Portuguese. I try to tell a joke in Portuguese and it comes off clumsy and it's not funny. And everyone just gives you this look of, did you mean to say that? And I swear in English, I'm a lot better at this, but I think I have definite limitations in what I'm able to talk about. And I think also it's almost a different personality that I have when I'm speaking Portuguese compared to when I'm speaking English. I'm so much more open speaking English. I am smarter. I am funnier. I am a lot better, I think, as a conversationalist versus in Portuguese. I am similar to you with the Italian that I spoke Spanish before I came here. So I throw Spanish words in all the time. I sound like an idiot on a very regular basis. And I think that there's something, I don't feel shy to speak because I know that they understand and we can get to the point. But for me, it's more of let's get to the point than let's actually connect on a deeper level and have a true friendship where we can share things about our life experiences. I struggle with that in Portuguese, and my level isn't low, but it's a different thing to be able to understand and to be able to be understood. Of course. Truly.
And did you kind of surmount that hill with Spanish? Did you get over that?
No.
Yeah. So
I think, I mean, maybe I did. So I dated a Colombian for a few years and we always went back and forth. and we would speak English to each other, and then he would be tired of English, and then we would speak Spanish to each other, and then I would be tired of Spanish, and then we would switch back. So his English became better than my Spanish, but it was never fully fluent. So we always kind of had this back and forth, and that's when my Spanish was the best. When we broke up, then my Spanish went downhill.
Okay. Yeah. No, what's so fascinating about what you just said is that many people have actually done research, and also many people, if you talk to different people who speak multiple languages, they will confirm that they do feel that due to the cultural influences, that a different personality comes out when they speak different languages. And I could even say that when I speak Italian, I feel very different than when I speak French, which I feel a bit more reserved and a bit more traditional and a bit more proper. Whereas if I speak English, the New Yorker kind of comes out a bit, even though I've lived in so many different countries, as you and I both are speaking right now, our New York accents are just totally gone. So, like there's just so much of this, the culture that influences the language, the customs, the way of life, how you conduct yourself. It's actually really common that we feel like we have different personalities in these different languages.
So tell me about your personality in Italian. What is Italian Angela?
That's a very interesting question. Italian Angela is actually a bit funny. And kind of...
So your Italian is very good if you're telling jokes and you're funny.
I don't think it's telling jokes. I think it's just me being a bit like pointing out the obvious, which I feel like a lot of Italians don't always do.
Okay.
And so it's me kind of trying to insert myself into like social circles and stuff like that. But it's, I would say, the equivalent of in American culture of like poking the bear.
Okay.
Just kind of like pointing out the obvious kind of thing. But yeah, no, I think I'm pretty friendly, and I think I like to kind of be a bit funny, and I am, polite, but I want to say assertive, like just really kind of present as I can be, and also at the same time totally aware that there are many things that I don't know, and I'm going to make mistakes, and it's okay, because if I don't, then you know what, my language muscle is going to become totally atrophied, and I'm going to be sitting here like part of the wallpaper, So yeah, I'm different.
Do you find that you're not assertive in French?
I will be as assertive as I can be, but I do realize that living in Belgian culture, it's more about compromise, and it's not really about like assertiveness. Whereas like, for example, being in the Netherlands, it's more about being direct and asking for what you want or pointing out what's not right, and more about that directness in order to make everyone kind of content. Yeah, it's so much embedded in the different cultures, but I feel like Belgian and French culture is a bit more about like following the rules. Like if I go up to someone and I don't say bonjour first, like, I'm sorry, you don't exist to me. It really is the way that it is. And if you don't follow that one rule for number one, you're going to get some backlash or ignored.
Portugal is the same. But if I say, hey, are you free at 5 p.m. tomorrow? It's like, hello, how are you? It's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Hello, how are you? Are you doing well today? Okay, so I was wondering, are you free at 5 p.m.? But you definitely need to start with the way that you're supposed to start, and you can't just jump into things. Okay, so speaking of languages and different personalities in different languages, your kids, I know they're not that old just yet, so maybe you haven't seen too much of this, but they speak 3 languages, I assume French, Italian, and English.
Yes.
Do you find that they're developing different personalities in those different languages?
That is really fascinating. I don't think so. Actually, for them, and I think it's because they are these sponges from day one. Our kids started daycare at 3 months old. They were there for 8 hours a day. And our daughter, she's the elder of the two, the oldest of the two, she was actually coming home speaking to us in 100% French. She was not, she heard English and Italian from birth, but it was 100% French, and she was saying certain words that we didn't know what they meant. She was saying, câlin, câlin. That means hug in French. We had no idea for months. It was ridiculous.
Your poor daughter just wanted to hug.
Exactly. And so it's really fascinating. But to get back to your question, no, they actually seem like the same person in all 3. I think they are both of them a bit more timid in French, and it's because they hear English and Italian at home, and French is the community language. A lot of their activities are done in French. They do not go to French school, but a lot of the extracurriculars and a lot of like gym class, that's in French. You know, if they go to some kind of workshop, that's in French. If the police officers come to their school to talk about safety, that's in French. But they also will hear other languages too on a daily basis, which is what's so fascinating about this life that they have. There are different sections of different languages at their school, so they'll have a class, a day where all the classes come together, and they'll also hear German, and they'll also hear English, and they'll hear French, and then they'll hear the Italian section. And so it's really beautiful. They are so used to hearing so many different languages. It's just so normal for them. And they're so curious about other languages too. Mommy, I want to learn Greek when I grow up. Mommy, I want to learn Spanish because so-and-so is from here and I like talking to their dad and whatever it may be. Like they're just so curious about this stuff. And it's really interesting that you say that. For me, I don't see any difference other than a little bit of shyness that comes up with their French. It's something I've never paid attention to be honest, even though I knew about the research. But for me, they just seem like they're 100% present selves when they're speaking all three languages.
And how did you guys split languages in your home? Did your husband speak Italian and you spoke English?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so in the house it was mom speaks English, dad speaks Italian, and then out of the house, the supermarket and the park and everywhere else is French. Yes.
I mean, we will be in communities. For example, our kids' classes, their parents from all different communities in all different countries. And so sometimes English becomes the language. Sometimes French becomes the language. Sometimes Italian becomes the language. Sometimes they'll pick up a book at the store and it's in French, and maybe bedtime is French language instead of English or Italian. For a very long time, we were one person, one language, one parent, one language. But now as they get older and they have a solid foundation and can switch with no problem, we've kind of introduced other things, other ways of life as well. And it works. It works for us. It may not work for everyone. I really feel for the families in which mom is from Czech Republic and Greece, and dad is from Italy and Germany, and they somehow have to bring 4 languages plus the community. That, for me, I really feel for these people because you have to be so intentional. And being here in Brussels, when you have the European Commission and all the European countries coming together, these families exist. Yeah. They do.
Wow, that's a lot of languages to
try
it really to teach at the same time. And do you consult with families like this? And what's your advice for them?
Yeah, it's all about intentionality and what your goals are, right? So when you come with a family, when I meet with a family that has more than just 2 languages between the parents, or even 3, like I can use an example. There's one client that I have in which the dad is half French, half British, and the mom is Italian. And the dad chose to speak French in the house instead of English, purely because of the fact that he felt that it would be easier for the child due to the community language. And this was their conscious choice. And for me, what it comes down to for every family, like you ask me a question, I'll give you my honest opinion. But more often than not, I ask a question back because it's your decision and you have to feel what's best for your family. Yeah. And that's what comes first and foremost, because that's what's really important here. But it is possible to do 4 different languages, but it really takes dedication and determination in order to do so. I mean, we know that there are people who have moved to the New York City area who do not continue speaking their language with their children because they want them to assimilate as soon as possible. Whereas there are many, for example, I can think of Koreans and Chinese in the United States where they still know their languages and they're still spoken at home and they're still just as successful as well. It really is about the choice, the intentionality, and how dedicated you are to making this work, because it comes down to the parents 99.9% of the time.
It's also a change in the research and a change in culturally accepted ways of teaching, because my dad was born in Poland, but in the 90s, they were told, don't teach your children more than 1 language. They'll get confused. So I didn't learn any Polish at all. And it feels like such a wasted opportunity that I could have been fluent in this language and don't speak a word of it because that's what they said in the 90s, is that you shouldn't teach your children more than one language. And now I feel like the research is completely the opposite, that it's actually so good for kids to learn more than one language.
Absolutely. And there are still, unfortunately, people that are going around telling parents that they shouldn't teach their child their language and that they should stay with there still are. And I've heard this from clients in Germany. I've heard this from clients in the United States, Spain. Unfortunately, it's not the majority, but these people still do exist.
Oh, that's so horrible.
Yeah.
Other than language, what are the other big things that parents come to you with that they're struggling in terms of their life abroad with trying to raise their children?
How to deal with cultures in the family. And this could be parenting, but also partnering. I'm sure that you've encountered this as well. Being in a relationship with someone who's from a totally different culture, that means they were raised in a totally different way. Yep. And often if you don't see it through the curious eyes, it's like, what the heck is going on here? Because you don't always understand. And that's why often in my work, I use the phrase, curiosity is the bridge to understanding. If we see this from the old man on the corner when you happen to be traveling as a traveler throughout the world, who's asking you if you would like to try some of his fruit off the tree, or inviting, like a family inviting you into their home for lunch, if you can see this through the eyes of curiosity, you can actually open yourself up to some amazing experiences, including getting to know a lot more about your partner, which is the original question that you just asked. But it also comes down to how to be intentional as parents, like how do you share customs and cultures and traditions and rituals and holidays, maybe even religion, if that's applicable to you. There's just so much to this. And often if we don't see it with curious eyes, it becomes conflict and it becomes resentment. So that's one. The other thing would be, how do we build a life together? And this can be pre-family or post, after you have a baby, which can come down to like how to be intentional with how you're living your life, which could be, for example, how do you want to have your careers? How do you want to parent your children? what are your values? And that's also a pretty deep conversation that requires you to really look within, but also understand that it's really important to be interdependent. I think in many cultures of the world, we're taught, and we think that it's important to be independent, and independence equals success or being successful. But if you're living abroad, if you are picking up your family and you're moving it to a totally different location, you don't have those support systems and that comfort zone that you once had. You don't have your community. It's so important to be interdependent. And this interdependence can be a very healthy thing in the essence that you're sharing all of the commitments. It is one person saying, I want to have a primary career, and the other person saying, I want to have a primary career. I want to be dedicated to my family and my career. How do we make this work? And so it really comes down to intentionality with that. And it's really important to talk about these things, because otherwise, once again, that's how resentment builds.
Yeah. And what is that line between interdependence and codependence? Because I think everyone is terrified of going into that codependent space.
I think there really isn't a lot of space for codependence in, let me take this back. There are some circumstances that take families overseas in which codependence can breed it can flourish almost in some places. That's not what I'm talking about here. What I mean by families who want to live intentional lives, they want to live in these modern families, these modern partnerships. Often it takes agency on both parts. And so it's really hard for that codependence to kind of thrive or even breed. I feel like more often than not, there may be some moments in which we need to lean on each other where it may borderline results or seem to be that. But often what it is just a period, kind of like, the 4 seasons, like sometimes we just need to rest and we just need to rejuvenate in order to become our full selves again. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. And then just, I guess, to wrap things up, what other advice would you give to families who are thinking about moving abroad or thinking about moving to another country or starting this journey? And where should they start?
That's a big question. Where should you start? there should be some thought process beforehand on why it is you want to move overseas, because if you're running from something, it will follow you.
Oh.
That really is my first piece of advice.
We've talked about that so many times on this podcast. The number of people that we see running away from their problems, arriving in Portugal, and then going straight back home in a couple of months is astonishing.
Yep. And Portugal's not the only place that this happens.
Exactly.
I think that we need to be self-aware. And if you're not somewhat self-aware, it's going to find you, because it's living life on your own with very little support and having to find all the things. You need to be honest with yourself, and you need to make sure that you meet yourself wherever you're at. So if you want to move abroad, I think it's really important to connect with networks, whether they're on Facebook or otherwise, in order to find out, how the system works, because schooling is going to be different. Insurance will be different. Often these things are going to be more advantageous than most. Let's say, for example, if we compare it to the United States. In Europe, a lot of these opportunities are free or low cost, and so it's going to be great, but you need to understand them to see and make the right choice for your family. And often when you have a family, just moving and trying figuring things out once you get there is really not the best bet. It's really not so great. The other thing I would say, when you decide to move, or when you decide that you're going to move, it's really important to talk to your kids about it early on.
Okay.
Because blindsiding them when they're not used to this life, even when they are used to this life, it's still important to have these transitions. It needs to almost become like a ritual, or a ceremony of sorts, in which you kind of close a door and then open a new door, because children get so used to routines, and there needs to be a way to say goodbye. There needs to be a way to say hello. There needs to be that bridge between the two. And there's so much complexity to this, and it can be incredibly beautiful, but you need to be honest and open with your kids and tell them about the decisions and why. And of course, if they're old enough, if they're not, then you can give them the information that's necessary. We're going to be moving, da, 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 da.
Yeah.
Often people hide it from their kids, and that actually is really not great. It's like, hey, next week we're moving to Germany. And it's like, well, wait a second, what? That's a disaster. And It just breeds so many problems. For those families that are already abroad or just moved, I would say that it's so important to establish a community, and this takes time. However, I would say the best way to create your community may not be what you think it is, which is going to the, where your kids go to school and making friends with the parents. That could work. If it clicks, good. If it doesn't, don't force it. You don't have to be friends with your friends' parents just because. Don't force it, it just doesn't, It doesn't gel, and it's not authentic, really. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
But you can join organizations. Let's say your passion is judo, and you want to meet other people. So go take a judo class, and you can have a conversation with a few of the people, and establish friendships that way. And you'll meet your people who are passionate about similar things, and you'll also meet people who potentially have similar personalities to you. Maybe they have kids, maybe they don't, and you build friendships in that way.
What's worked for you in terms of making friends? Are there a few things that have worked particularly well for you individually?
Yeah, so I have done exactly what I just said. In fact, I've found some of my best friends, a lot of my female friends, through I was a part of a mindfulness teacher training, and some of my best friends were in that, and that's because my passion for meditation. I thought you meant
that you did judo. I was so excited to hear about your judo career.
Actually, my husband is passionate about Aikido, and so I always use some kind of martial arts example because it applies to many. For me, it's more African dance, but I didn't actually meet any friends there. Another thing that's worked. Yeah, another thing that's worked for me is when you do something which there are a lot of locals. Friendships don't have to always come out of this, but sometimes you can learn a lot about yourself and about the local culture by just having a coffee, treating a local to a coffee. It's like, hey, I would really like to get to know you better, and learn more about where you're from. And I just arrived here, or whatever applies in that phrase, or whatever you want to share. And I learned so much about Belgian culture because I made this, even though I teach cultural communication. In the beginning, before I really dived deep into it, I assumed that Belgium and the Netherlands were going to be very similar. You both have, speak Dutch, they also speak French. But I was wrong, and I found out so much about how the cultures differ. And I want to say the complexity of Belgium with 3 languages, multiple governments, et cetera, through having these coffees with locals. And so that's another thing. And then there's professional development. I've done a lot of professional development in France at INSEAD, and I've met some of my best friends there as well, some that also are Belgian. For me, it's all about just showing up with kindness and just, having conversations with people. And if you feel that there's something kind of there, like, like we could become friends, like, why don't we go grab some lunch? You can start to I feel like expat life is like this beautiful testing ground. Like it's almost kind of like experimentation all the time, which is beautiful and can be complex. But if you just embrace it, it's like, let's have lunch. I'm curious to find out more kind of thing. Then you're able to see like, okay, this could be a friendship, or, we have kids the same age. Like maybe we can go to the park at the same time, like, so what do you do for fun?
Yeah.
You never know.
But this word curiosity is coming up with you a lot. So it really is something that embracing curiosity seems to be good for all parts of your life when you're living abroad, would you say?
Yes. And I also find that the areas in which I feel really constrained are when I feel like people are not showing curiosity. And this could be everything from in-laws to the local government office.
Yeah.
And everywhere in between. I'm sure you've experienced this many times. You just have those moments where people make assumptions about you and you're like, what? Why? How? Can you just understand that we're different and maybe ask me a question? Like, it's tough sometimes.
Yeah. All right, last question. Where to next? Are you sticking around in Belgium? Are you planning to go somewhere else, or what's next for you?
Yeah, that's such a great question, and I fear my answer may be a bit boring for you. I think we're going to be here until our kids graduate high school.
Oh, wow. That's a long commitment.
Yeah. Well, our son is 5, our daughter is 7, so that's 11 to 13 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how does that make you feel as someone who has traveled so much, who's lived in so many countries, to say, okay, 13 more years in this one place? Does that feel comfortable for you? Does that feel scary for you?
It doesn't feel scary. At the same time, I think what makes me feel a bit comfortable in that is that I love to travel, and I have this thing to where I say 1 country per year minimum for every year that I'm alive. And I think that that's a beautiful way into understanding a bit more about the world at a different speed. And at the same time, what I love about where I live, Brussels is an amazing place because you will encounter people who speak Arabic, Spanish, and French, and you can have a conversation with them about their life and bond over a coffee about how you bumble your words in French, even though right now you're actually speaking in French. It's just a beautiful microcosm to where you feel you're in a place, but you could be in any place at any time due to the beautiful microcosm of people that live there. And so I don't really see it as scared. I see it as I have many opportunities to immerse myself in different cultures almost daily. I mean, it depends, of course, what my day entails, it's so beautiful. It's such a wonderful opportunity, and I feel very fortunate to have landed here.
That is amazing. And really, what a blessing to feel so comfortable in that place that you could say, 13 more years, let's do this. Like, I'm very impressed.
I mean, at the same time, I feel like if there's something that I really embody, it's one day at a time. Like, we just only have this one moment. I think John Kabat-Zinn said that. Just one day at a time, one moment at a time. My kids are always like, Mommy, what are we doing tomorrow? And I was like, right now, let's focus on right now.
Right now.
Like, if I look at 13 years ahead, I have no idea what's going on then.
Sure.
Sure, we may have dreamed about our retirement, where we're going to retire to, but nothing more than a conversation. It's really like, let's focus on the now, enjoy the moment, and if anything, plan our next vacation.
Amazing. Well, thank you again so much, Angela, for joining. And if people want to hear more from you and find you, where would they go?
Yeah. So we have a website, www.expatparentingcollective.com. Expat, the word, parenting, the word, collective.com. No spaces, no dashes, all one word. Instagram is our social media platform of choice. And so we're on Instagram as www.instagram.com/Expat Parenting Collective. And yeah, of course, if you want to reach out to me personally, I'm on LinkedIn. My first name, Angela. My last name is spelled, actually, my middle initial M, and then my last name, Vitiello. And since my last name is kind of like John Smith in the south of Italy, at the end of my name, I put my credentials. So you have MBA, MSED. So yeah, it's pretty easy to find me and to find us. And yeah, open for any questions or any kind of curiosities that anyone may have, because I feel like the expat life has become more a choice that people are looking into. And at the same time, it can be a beautiful experience, and it also can be challenging.
Definitely. Definitely. We definitely talk about that, the challenges and the beauty all the time. Thanks again, Angela. And back to you, Ryan.
And that was our episode for today, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. It's always so good to chat with you. If you've got any thoughts or anything that you'd love to share with us, please get in contact. We're on expatslisten@gmail.com, or we're on Instagram @expatslisten. We'd love to hear from you. And until we speak again, have a great week. Bye-bye.